Governor, nice to see you, sir.
Thanks, Greta. Nice to be on with you again.
All right. You happy with today's decision from Judge Hudson or not?
Yeah. I mean, this is what we'd asked for, is to have a declaration that having a mandate that a citizen of Virginia buy a product of insurance, and if they don't, to be penalized with a fine. We've always said that's against the United States Constitution. That was the guts of Judge Hudson's ruling today, to say that the Commerce Clause does not allow the United States Congress to do that. Now, we would have liked to have the next step and have a stay in the implementation of the law, but the judge chose not to do that. But on the fundamental issue of interpreting the United States Constitution, I thought he got it exactly right.
All right. Now, in terms of a stay, I guess because you're incurring costs now, and the state had asked for an injunction, and the judge said it doesn't meet the standards for an injunction. He's going to just give what's called declaratory relief. But you already you have costs already, do you not?
We do. I mean, since the passage of the bill, have had to assume that this law is going to be in effect. So I've designated my secretary to start setting up the exchanges and hiring the people and setting up the procedures, the insurance changes that all need to be done in anticipation of some things that are implemented now, but some, of course, in January of 2014. And I think what people want right now is predictability and certainty. Is this law going to go into effect, or is it going to be ultimately stricken by the United States Supreme Court? So I have urged my fellow governors in a letter last Thursday to join in a letter with me to the Justice Department, to the Attorney General, in asking for this thing to bypass the Court of Appeals and go directly to the Supreme Court. I mean, everybody knows that's where it's going to be decided anyway. So let's not waste another year or year and a half in litigation. Let's get it to the U.S. Supreme Court, get a final decision on the constitutionality, which I hope will be favorable, and then people can go on and know what the landscape is. But this years of uncertainty in appeals is not good.
And you want that letter, or you want governors from states that agree with you and disagree to join with you?
Yeah, because this is not about the merits. Governors will probably have different views ultimately on what they think about the underlying bill itself. But nobody should disagree that we don't need a prompt and quick answer for individuals, for business, for health insurance companies, for doctors. Let's get this thing resolved. And so this is one of those great cases under Rule 11, which I know you're familiar with, to get it right to the United States Supreme Court, let them make a decision. And I know the Attorney General of Virginia is going to ask for that from the Justice Department. I fully support that, and hope other governors will weigh in and say, yeah, let's get this resolved in the interest of finality.
Have you spoken to any other governors since the ruling came down in Richmond?
I've spoken to a couple.
Who have you spoken to?
Well, they probably wouldn't want me to say, because I've spoken to people on both sides. Well, obviously some are disappointed on the other side.
Who have you spoken to?
I just had a nice chat with my good friend Martin O'Malley, who's a good colleague, does a lot of work with us on a number of things in the Northern Virginia area, and we talked a little bit about the ruling. But I'll just say that there will be different views on what they think about the ruling, but there shouldn't be disagreement on let's get this resolved at the United States Supreme Court quickly so everybody knows what the rules are.
Is talk to Governor O'Malley about hurrying it up to the Supreme Court?
Let me just say that we had a nice discussion, and I followed up on the letter that I sent him last Thursday, as I sent to all 50 governors. And yeah, I asked him to consider signing it. He's a leader among the Democrats, and hopefully he'll be interested in doing that, because this part is not partisan. This is a procedural issue to get the law clarified. You know, the one thing business abhors, and we've seen a lot of this out of Washington, unfortunately, is the lack of certainty and the lack of predictability. That's what kills business. And as long as we might have to go through years of appeals, it's not going to help the economy recover. It's not going to help create the certainty in the healthcare environment that we need.
Are you going to go full speed ahead, expecting that it will be ultimately declared by the Supreme Court unconstitutional, or are you going to go full speed ahead that it's constitutional? I mean, what do you do right now? Because it could be, even at the fastest, it'd be 6 months or even 3 years sitting up in the Supreme Court.
Well, that's right. I've got to operate like every governor does, assuming that this is going to be ultimately the law of the land.
Even though right now it's not the law of the land in this jurisdiction right now, the mandate.
Well, the mandate is not. However, there are
other aspects to it.
Right, but the judge did not stay the implementation of this. So while he has ruled that it is unconstitutional in Virginia, there's not a stay of the implementation of the law, because the judge realizes that the major issues are taking place in January of 2014. And so the problem is it takes 3 years plus to get these healthcare exchanges set up in a reasonable way. So I think governors all across the country, including me in Virginia, are still going to have to lay the foundations to implement the health care exchanges, the other insurance law changes, and things that need to be done. And if it's ultimately held in our favor at the United States Supreme Court, which I think it will be under a reasonable construction of the Commerce Clause, then that's great. But the sooner that's done, the sooner we don't have to spend money on things that might ultimately be stricken.
Governor, thanks, sir.
Okay.
Nice
Good
to
to be
see you.
with you, Greta. Thanks.